UFC 325 in the books. Sydney, Australia. You got another card. Moving on from Perth to Sydney, though. But we had Alexander Volkanovski defend home territory with a very dominant. I scored it 50-45 personally, but let me know how y'all scored it. Did y'all give it a 49-46 for Diego Lopes? But Alexander Volkanovski, absolute domination. He did everything right, and we're going to go straight into the numbers. Alexander Volkanovski outstruck him. The control was on his side. It was a complete domination for Alexander the Great, and it was a very vintage performance. It was amazing to watch as a fan, and the footwork of Alexander Volkanovski cannot be understated. Like, everything that he does is pretty much textbook and right. Like, he doesn't make a lot of mistakes, and he made barely any in this fight, if any. You had the flash knockdown, which, off rip, I really thought it was a slip. Kind of rhyming right there. But I really thought it was a slip on the end of Alexander Volkanovski, but upon replay, it looked like Lopes landed a hook in there. Outside of that, Volkanovski did everything right. I mean, the leg kicks, the movement. What really impresses me when I'm watching Alexander Volkanovski is his ability to get in and out of range. And when he is attacking Diego Lopes in this fight in particular, when he's attacking Diego, he's hit him with a couple shots and overhand right, and he is already out of the distance by the time Diego Lopes is loading up a counterattack. And that is something that is not, it's not very common, especially in a title fight scene where it's 5 rounds. You have a filler fight. We've already had a fight between the two. So Volkanovski made some great points leading up to this fight. Is like, if Diego Lopes tries to become a more tactical fighter, that could bite against him because he has a lot more success when he makes fights dirty, and things aren't going to go your way when a fight is dirty all the time. But in this fight in particular, that was Diego Lopes' best path to victory, was to make it an absolutely barn burner, an insane match. And it looked like Diego, he was really hesitant at times. He couldn't cut Volkanovski off. Volk was just in control from as soon as the bell rung until he had a belt wrapped around his waist, man. Very impressive performance. Right now, I'm leaning towards Movsar Evloev for Alexander Volkanovski's next opponent over Lerone Murphy, just because I think Alexander fighting an undefeated guy at this point in his career, it's going to look better on the resume. And also Lerone Murphy, you have the spinning elbow knockout for him, but I'm not sure where you go. Like, I think that fight might be a lot more promotable, but you could also promote Volkanovski versus an underrated guy, underrated and undefeated guy. I mean, it's very tough. Let me know who y'all think is next between Lerone Murphy and Movsar Evloev, but right now I'm leaning towards Movsar. What's next for Diego Lopes? Looked like he had a broken foot, if I'm not wrong. I saw somebody on X or Twitter say that Diego Lopes might have a broken foot. But not sure. Maybe Yair Rodriguez. If we could get that fight booked, that would be pretty sweet. Outside of that, I'm not really too sure. Maybe Diego versus Lerone, but it's, to me, Lerone deserves a title eliminator. If you book Movsar, very interesting stuff at featherweight. But moving on, we had a great fight between Dan Hooker and Benoit Saint Denis. And when I say that round 1 that Dan Hooker put on, I thought that was one of his best rounds that I've seen him fight in the UFC entirely. He was picking apart Benoit Saint Denis in the teeps to the body. 19 attacks to the head, but 8 to the body. All teeps, man. I mean, he was very accurate with his punches and his kicks. Didn't make a lot of mistakes in round 1, but you see the complete domination in the numbers right here. It wasn't particularly close, but Benoit Saint Denis, he's just violent, man. He has the nickname the God of War for a reason. Special forces in the French military. He fights, man. I mean, he fights till the bell is, until he hears the bell, until he is a terrifying human. I mean, it's just one guy I would not want to be in the octagon with. He's good everywhere, really. Has the losses to Renato Moicano, and we're going to get into another fight, but The loss to Dustin Poirier and Renato Moicano definitely going to haunt him for a little bit, but he's on a 4-fight win streak now. What's next for Benoit Saint Denis? I'm not too sure right now. Dan Hooker. I mean, he's just give him somebody violent, man. Give him a fight night main event. I just want to see Dan Hooker or BKFC, man. If Dan Hooker's never in the UFC again, he's got to be in BKFC. I need to see Dan Hooker in bare knuckle boxing. That's just going to be violent, man. But these are two men that love violence, and that's what we got out of this fight. But it was Dan Hooker on the wrong end. Caught himself on the ground. Benoit. He almost had a Kimura for a second, and he was going for some arm submissions, but for me, Benoit Saint Denis is just a very scary human. I mean, lightweights, they gotta watch out for this guy. And I mean, even his losses to Renato Moicano and Dustin Poirier more so is in the Poirier fight. He was competitive in that fight at the beginning, and you had the whole staph infection thing. He is a guy to watch, man. That's all I'm saying about Benoit Saint Denis. But also another guy to watch is a guy that he has a victory over in Mauricio Rufy. Mauricio Rufy, coming off a loss to Benoit Saint Denis, beats Rafael Fiziev in round 2 by KO with a sniper right hand. Absolutely beautiful performance from Mauricio. Very technical fight we had here. Very textbook fight. Two guys that are just making reads. And, they're just two high-level strikers going at it. Rafael Fiziev, he throws like one of the most beautiful switch kick. I don't even know if switch kicker is a term, but he is the best switch kicker I've seen, man. I mean, the speed and power that he puts on switch kicks is unbelievable. Mauricio Rufy was able to counter him whenever his back was up against the cage, though. Found that right hand that he was looking for and put Rafael out. It was a beautiful sniper right hand, beautiful knockout, and it was a great bounce back performance for Mauricio Rufy. We have the build here. We have the lanky McGregor moving lightweight. We just have a big question mark about the takedown defense. How is he going to do up against some of the top grapplers at lightweight? Is the strength going to be an issue possibly? I think he aced this test, though, in Rafael Fiziev. And at 13-5, Rafael Fiziev's record just does not indicate how good and talented he is. Granted, one of those losses is to Gamrot when he blew his knee out. But, and he has the 2 Gaethje losses. He's just such a sick fighter to watch, and he is so fun to watch, man. I mean, he's one of my favorite UFC fighters. And even then with Mauricio Rufy, all 6 of these guys that we've covered so far, all entertaining fighters. But this is where the card starts to go downhill a little bit. Taliesin Teixeira, Tai Tuivasa. Just a very weird fight. Tai Tuivasa found a lot of success in that 3rd round finally after doing nothing in the first 2. At the beginning of round 1, Tai Tuivasa just completely walked himself into a takedown. And Taliesin Teixeira capitalized. He did what he needed to do to beat Tai Tuivasa, and it really wasn't much, in my opinion. He just had to not get hit with a right overhand, and he did in round 3. He definitely did. He ate some shots, but by the end, it was round 3, man. Those shots after rounds 1 and 2 aren't going to be as impactful as they are when you're fresh in round 1, especially for a guy like Tai Tuivasa, who is very out of shape, and I personally, when I'm watching Tai Tuivasa, I'm just not impressed with his game plan and his preparation for going into these fights. I think now it is 6 losses in a row for Tai Tuivasa, who has been one of the most entertaining UFC fighters to watch over, the course of his career. And we were at one point very close to seeing Tai Tuivasa versus John Jones for a heavyweight title. If Tai Tuivasa was able to take care of Cyril Gane at that time, what an insane scene that would have been. Tai Tuivasa versus the greatest of all time in a lot of people's eyes. That would have just been scenes in the MMA community. It would have been a meme fight, really. But Taliesin Teixeira, coming off a loss to Derek Lewis, took care of business, pulls out a decision, and in my opinion, it was a bad fight. And it's not a bad fight in the sense. It was a bad fight because I feel like Tai Tuivasa could have did a lot more. It was a bad fight because Tai Tuivasa, whenever in round 3 he was having a lot of success, he was just relying on the clinch at that point. It was like he would land a few strikes, rely on a clinch, and, just try to regain some stamina maybe. And that's where I'm just questioning the preparation of Tai Tuivasa at that point. It could have been a much different result had he been a bit more prepared, in my opinion. Having to cut down to heavyweight is a crazy concept to me, though. If you are above the 265-pound limit, which Tai probably is above, well over, if I had to guess, probably closer to 300. If I would be very interested to see if he's not already 300 pounds. But you could have had a lot more success against a guy like Thaleson Teixeira tonight. And I'm not sure if that's the last we saw of Tai Tuivasa, but it wouldn't really surprise me. Quillen Soutkill, Jamie Mullarkey. Made quick work of Jamie Mullarkey, but he is a prospect to watch, man. He is violent. He fights well on the feet. He fights well on the ground. Coming off the KO win over Nasrat, you're like, man, this guy, he's got some sick striking, but, his ground game is just as good. The neck crank that he had on Jamie Mullarkey was beautiful. It was a beautiful submission, but wasn't much to really talk about in this fight other than Quillen Soutkill is that guy. He's him. It's going to be very fun to start watching him as he moves up. Gets closer to the rankings possibly in his next fight, but always fun to watch Quillen Soutkill when he's in the octagon. Elikana versus Tafa. Tafa, man, both the Tafa brothers are very interesting UFC fighters, but Elikana, two weird, I feel like undersized light heavyweights in this fight. They both have a lanky kind of build for a lightweight or a light heavyweight, but I know Elikana said that he wasn't really too happy with this performance. Go ahead and look at some of his previous fights. Did not know he fought Guskov back in 25, but he's been pretty active. Got January, July, November, 3 fights last year. Starting off January of this year with a very good performance, but 6'3", 205. We got lanky light heavyweights right here. But Tafa, he was light work tonight. Moving forward, Cody Brundage. I didn't really like Cody Brundage's game plan going into this fight. I thought he could have had a lot more success. That's what I'm going to say for a lot of people that were on the wrong end of the stick. But when I'm watching these fights, I'm just seeing what they can do better, kind of seeing it from maybe like a coach's eye almost, is what do I want my fighter doing? So I'm watching Cody Brundage, and he's having success in certain moments, and then he just stops entirely, it felt like. And I just felt it maybe press the gas a little bit more. You would have had more success. And I think his coaches were saying that is just keep going, keep the pace, keep throwing strikes. It's just he would stop for like 30 seconds to a minute, and you find yourself in uncomfortable situations when your opponent doesn't feel a threat coming back from your punches. And Ralston, he was able to take advantage of that. Great performance out of him. See what's next for him. Another city kickboxing guy. The Battle Giraffe was one of my favorite nicknames I heard tonight. It was a sick performance, but it looked like Torres Finney tore his Achilles in the octagon. I'm going to be interested to see the medical report on him. Jacob Malkoun, he did what he needed to do. That was a beautiful fight from him. Made light work of Torres Finney, giving him his first loss. And Torres Finney, he has the crazy build. He's a memeable fighter almost, but it was good to see him in the UFC. Not sure if he's going to be on the... it's a tough fight, right? But I remember watching him on the Contender Series. I think he had to fight 3 times on the Contender Series just to get in the UFC. Gets a split decision win. I remember this fight. And then it was a very bad performance, but I'm interested to see if it was a torn Achilles, man, because it looked like the leg popped. After watching so many NFL games and basketball games, you know what a torn Achilles looks like. It looks like, the back of the leg vibrates. I don't know if it was something on the knee or the Achilles for Torres Finney, but hoping it's not the Achilles, man, because that's a brutal one. Jacob Malkoun, though, great performance. I mean, he was rocking Torres Finney with all strikes to the head. I mean, 115 out of 179. I mean, he dominated this fight. Oban Elliott, it was a 6 submission for Jonathan. Looks like he's on a sweet little win streak here. Gonna see what we got next for him. Contender Series guy. Only 26 as well. We got some movement here at welterweight. Get to another prospect. And I think we had some road to the UFC guys as well right here. I was not too familiar with the road to the UFC guys. I'm going to have to go back and watch all of the road to the UFC fights. So I don't know too much of the backgrounds on them. I saw Nakamura. I saw his win by knee. Saw that fight on Twitter, and then I saw a split decision at the bottom right here. I didn't get to watch those fights, though. Missed those out, but I'm going to go back and watch those and, do some studying and do some work on them. See if we got any prospects to keep an eye on, but don't have too much commentary on them. But outside of that, man, the main card was solid. It was a great performance out of Alexander the Great Volkanovski. For me, Movsar Evloev is next. Rafael Fiziev, I hope to see him in the octagon this year again. Mauricio Rufy. I want to see that rematch with Benoit Saint Denis one day. Maybe for a belt later down the line, that would be sick. But lightweight's got a lot going on. There's just guys like, Quillen Salkill that just pop up. And, we have more contenders on the rise. So this happens all the time in this division. This is nothing new for Benoit Saint Denis either. It's on a 4-fight win streak now. It's going to be very interesting to see the matchmaking off a lot of these fights. Maybe we could get Dan Hooker versus Mauricio Rufy, That would be pretty sweet. That would be a good matchup and a step up for Mauricio Rufy. Benoit Saint Denis. Just trying to think of lightweights that you could match up with Benoit Saint Denis right now. Let's see what we got. Got Arman Sarukian. We got Dan Hooker at 6, so Benoit Saint Denis likely takes that 6 spot. Benoit Saint Denis versus Paddy Pimblett, maybe. We've got Holloway versus Oliveira. The loser of that fight maybe fights Mauricio Rufy if he has that 9th ranking. Gamrot's kind of just left out in all of this conversation. He's going to have to fight. Gamrot's going to have to fight Manuel Torres or a Faraziam, I feel like, to keep that 7 ranking, and then maybe you can have that conversation. He's just left out in the lightweight picture, sadly. But maybe we could get Paddy Pimblett versus Benoit Saint Denis. That would be a pretty sick matchup. Obviously let Paddy rest up for a little bit. I think at featherweight, I think you got to do Yair Rodriguez. I think Yair versus Diego Lopes. That just makes the most sense. Movsar versus Alex. Unfortunately, I want to see Lerone Murphy versus Aljamain Sterling. I think Aljamain, he's still a contender at featherweight, man. I think his loss to Movsar might have been the only one. Guy, he had the defenses with the bantamweight title. I know he's not the most liked fighter, but I've always enjoyed watching Aljamain Sterling in the octagon. I think maybe seeing Aljamain versus Lerone Murphy in a title eliminator, that makes the most sense. And then try to run Yair Rodriguez, Diego Lopes in the summer maybe, if all goes well. Also leaves out John Silver a little bit, but John Silva, you could do him versus Aljamain Sterling if Lerone Murphy's the backup. There's a lot of scenarios that this could go. This is all just speculation and talk. I want to say we had next week. I think we got a UFC card next week, a fight night. And we got Mario Bautista versus Vinicius Oliveira. We've got Amir Albazi versus Horiguchi in the flyweight co-main. That'll be a sweet matchup. Flyweight's got some more movement. Man, that's a potential title contender right there between Horiguchi and Amir Albazi. Jailton Almeida's back versus Kuniev. Mikhail Oleksiejczuk versus Marc-Andre Barriault. Got some pretty decent fights. Dustin Jacoby, man, wow. Remember watching him in kickboxing back in the day. That was pretty sweet. Said Nurmagomedov on the prelims. He's always pretty fun to watch. Then we got a week off, and then it's Strickland versus Anthony Fluffy Hernandez. So it'll be a fun time in the UFC. Let me know what y'all think about the flyweight division. In my opinion, if it's up to me personally, I'm booking Mozart, champion, Alexander the Great. Then I'm going Diego, Yair. Then I'm going Lerone versus Aljamain. I think all 5 of these guys, really the top 6 guys counting the champ, I think they should all fight each other, really. We got 4 and 5, we got 2 and 3, we've got 1 versus a champ. That's how I would do it personally. Gian Silva obviously just coming off a good win over Arnold Allen, but I'm going to leave him out for now. Brian Ortega, man, he's had a rough going recently. I heard he just pulled out of his fight. Josh Emmett's still there. Patricio Pitbull, Danny Ige. Got some movement at featherweight. I don't really love this Diego Lopes rematch. I didn't love it when it was made, but it's the fight that we got. And, what do you do, right? But that's going to be all for me tonight. I really enjoyed watching this card. Let me know what y'all rate it out of 10. I think I would give it a 7 out of 10. Just because the prelims weren't too exciting. I was very invested in the main card. And for the prelims, I just wasn't tapped into Road to the UFC. So I got to go back and watch some of that and study up on those guys. But if y'all did enjoy, make sure to like, comment, subscribe. Check out all the socials down below. And I will see y'all next week. Peace.